Hello, welcome back to the United Mates Football Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Keitel, and joining me in LA as ever from back in our hometown of London is my co-host, Joe. We do, as usual, also have a special guest on the call with us too. He's the owner of Mundo Albiceleste, where he reports on everything to do with the Argentina national team, as well as news regarding Argentine players around the world. Welcome Roy Nemer to the United Mates Football Podcast. Roy, cheers for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the pod. And how's it going, mate?
What an introduction. I love it. Thank you guys for having me. It's going well. It's crunch end of Champions League season and World Cup year and all that fun stuff. So it's a good time to be a football fan.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all ours to have you with us. We'll probably be chatting about some of the upcoming World Cup stuff, Qatar 2022. Otherwise, before I pass things over to Joe, I used the word in the intro that you were very kind about, actually, Roy. I referenced Argentine, and you hear Argentine, you hear Argentinian kind of used alternately. Is there a difference? Does it matter?
I don't believe so. I think the proper is Argentinian, but I've heard Argentine thrown around a bunch of times. I guess depends who you ask.
Well, all right, then that's kind of cleared it up. Joe, as we record, your club's one Argentinian player had an unfortunate moment against United the other day. Cristian Romero celebrating in Harry Maguire's face might have actually, I guess, maybe been the karma that ended up sealing a Spurs loss, Ronaldo's hat trick and all that. So, Joe, how's Romero working out so far for you at Spurs, and how are you doing, mate?
Hello, good evening, Kai. I really like Cristian Romero, or Cuti Romero, as I think he's known. He's been brilliant for us so far. And obviously that was a slightly unfortunate moment given we'd go on to lose the game, but I think that's just the way Romero plays, with a lot of passion. He's the sort of guy, if he's on your team, you love him. Probably if he was on the opposite team to me, I wouldn't like him so much. But I'm a big fan of him, and think he'll be a good player for us. I mean, we need to have a couple of good players after all. It's great to have you on tonight, Roy. Pleasure to be speaking to you. And what we always do at the start of one of our podcasts is we ask our guests a icebreaker question. So we've got an icebreaker question for you. What we've done is we've gone through your Twitter account just to find something that you've posted about recently. Don't worry, nothing too incriminating. But what we saw was you did a post about basically Sergio Aguero. And Sergio Aguero was referencing the fact that when he was 12 years old, he'd love to watch Riquelme play, the fantastic Argentinian playmaker. So our question for you, Roy, is when you were 12, who was your favourite player to watch? But we'll let you have a little think about that first. Kai, why don't I ask you first? Who was your favourite player to watch when you were 12?
So when I was 12, that was actually the, I think, final season possibly at Highbury for Arsenal, and I think the season where we might have made it into the Champions League final. And it was Robert Pires's last season with the club. I didn't know that necessarily at the time, but he was always one of my favorite players growing up. So I'd have to say probably Robert Pires. But if we're maybe talking about Argentinian footballers, at that point in time, I think courtesy of, it might have been Pro Evolution Soccer 4 or one of the editions around then, I just had a soft spot for Real Zaragoza. They were really good at the time. And it was actually, I think, the beginning of Pablo Aymar's spell there. And they likewise had the brothers, Gabriel and Diego Milito. So they had these three Argentinian footballers, and I was a fan of that trio. So that was Pires and those three Argentinian footballers when I was 12. But what about you, Joe? Who was your favorite player when you were 12?
Well, that season was the Lasagna season for Tottenham, the infamous Lasagna year. So I guess it would have to be the likes of Jermaine Defoe, Robbie Keane. I mean, we had some more bantery players there, like Paul Stalteri, young Pioli. But I think the Robbie Keane and Jermaine Defoe's, those are my favourite players at the time. So I'll go for those guys. But Roy, what about you? Back when you were 12, who was your favourite player? Or which players did you enjoy watching back then?
I had like Aguero, for me, Riquelme. Riquelme was, for me, my second, so to speak, football love, if that makes sense. First one being Gabriel Batistuta, Batigol. So for me, 2002, especially considering his age and everything, for me, that was kind of like his last tournament, his last World Cup, his last matches for Argentina. So Batistuta, tried to enjoy him as much as I possibly can. Riquelme, the other one, because at that point he was with Boca, and Boca making the switch over to Barcelona, and he was dominating, winning Copa Libertadores and playing very, very well. So it was Riquelme, it was Bati, and then you had some other ones. You had Aymar as well, just fantastic player. Obviously with Valencia, took them to the Champions League final, and that was just a good Valencia squad. And then you had, Crespo as well. Crespo, Zanetti, Ajala, that whole group, that was my childhood, so to speak. From I first started watching football around end of 93, beginning of 94, let's say. My first real memory being the 94 World Cup. So from there up until 2002, fortunately enough, Argentina had some very, very good talented players. So I was them. Non-Argentinian players aside, there was one player, and he ultimately ended up, at that point kind of broke my heart. Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp. So Bergkamp from 98, despite what happened in 98, Bergkamp, you cannot love him. Obviously the talent was there. And Thierry Henry is another one around that time with Arsenal.
We've all seen the footage of that Bergkamp goal against Argentina, the great commentary, likewise a bit of crossover with Riquelme being the one to miss the penalty against Arsenal when we did make it to that Champions League final in that season when I was 12 years old. You sort of grew up in a pretty golden era of Argentinian football, but kind of sticking with football, when we have our guests on, like to get a picture of what it was that kind of drew them to football in the first place. Things like, early memories of watching or playing the beautiful game. You've kind of told us a bit about that already, but I guess taking it really, really back to the early days, so to speak, Roy, what is your football origin story and why do you love football?
Yeah, because of two people, because of my father and because of my brother. I have an older brother, and my father grew up, watching Pele all those years ago. So for him, he's always been a fan of Brazil. And as a kid, he would always tell us Brazil and Pele being, the best he ever saw. And my brother, who was older than me, he was fortunate enough to watch Diego Maradona. So he saw Maradona, he saw the part of the 86 World Cup and the 1990 World Cup. So in 94, I was 4 years old in 94. So that was really my first, real footballing memory. So I remember watching the 94 World Cup and Batistuta's hat trick actually versus Greece. And that was the one that kind of caught my attention. Like, you have this guy that, long hair and everything, just a bullet of a rocket of a shot. And despite the fact that my father is a Brazilian fan, my brother's a diehard Argentinian fan, Argentinian national team. So because of the 80s, because of Maradona. So I was kind of torn in between, do I go with my dad? Do I go with my brother? And ultimately just, you tend to follow in your siblings' footsteps, and Argentina fan since 94, and the rest is kind of history. And I grew up playing it, not very good at it. I realized I was not a good striker despite my height, never a really good midfielder, pretty good fullback, but goalkeeper is where I excelled. So I'm about, to give you an idea, I'm about 6'5.5", so almost 2 meters tall. So for me, goalkeeper, ever since I was a young kid, I was fairly tall, and I always liked the pressure of being a goalkeeper, but obviously never really good enough to play at a very, very competitive level. But I ended up continuing watching the game and just absolutely love it.
Fantastic. Well, no, that's great to hear, and good a bit of family rivalry in there with the Brazil-Argentina rivalry, which is obviously a very famous one indeed. But obviously, Roy, you told us a bit about how you got into watching the Argentina national team. You told us obviously you play a bit of football yourself, well, you certainly did. But obviously these days you write and report on football a lot too. So what was it about writing and reporting that appealed to you, and I suppose from a football perspective anyway?
Well, I realized I was never going to make any sort of career, any sort of anything out of playing. So that was kind of out of the question. And the next thing was either, do I try and become and study a coach or go into sports medicine, something like that. Never really had the patience for it. And I just started writing on a blog for fun. And then ultimately that pastime, that hobby became, to a certain degree, a profession. I'm not going to necessarily say a career, but, been fortunate enough to travel enough because of it. And that's essentially why. I'm never good enough to make it as a player, and definitely don't have the brains to be a coach, although I think everybody loves to tweet about it and why make this substitution, why play this and why play that. That's always fun, but never really tactically astute enough to do anything in that regards. And it just, like I said, it became a passion, became a hobby, just to write, and specifically about the Argentina national team, just because to a certain degree I like to think of that I have enough knowledge sort of to speak on them, especially considering I've been watching them for over 20 years now, 25 years. Obviously not nearly as long as other people, but I've watched my fair share of matches and unfortunately heartbreaks. So that kind of turned into, you know what, we're playing well, we're losing, let me rant about it, let me talk about it. And then one thing led to another, and it's, here we are. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Oh, here we are indeed. And obviously, Keitel and I do a podcast. We like to write about football too. We totally get it, of course. But obviously, one of the big things, one of your big projects is obviously Mundo Albiceleste, which I believe began in 2006. Did you start it back in 2006, Roy?
So yes and no. So essentially what happened was in 2006, it wasn't started by myself. It was started by someone else called Sebastian Garcia, a very good friend of mine based in Argentina. And he started it just as a blog, writing about the 2006 World Cup for Argentina. I discovered the site or the blog back in 2007. And from there, just kind of started writing, just for fun. He asked me if I could write some posts and stuff like that, because I was commenting several times a day on every single post. And I said, sure, why not? And just kind of started writing from there. And, with time, things happen, family, friends, life happens. So he kind of stepped aside a little bit, took a step to the side. And I really continued the site from 2007 up until now. So for the first 4 years or so, it was specifically just a blog. It was really just a blog. And then we had someone else come in as well who helped out in terms of making it, say, a website. So less of a blog, more of a website about 4 years after. And that was it. The rest just kind of took off. And, it was around 2014, the 2014 World Cup, where the website grew bigger for two specific reasons. Obviously, Lionel Messi at the time was just a megastar, much more established in 2010. And Argentina made the final in 2014. So people were looking for content, people were looking for news, not just specifically about Messi, but the Argentina national team as a whole. And the fact that it was Argentina in a final in Brazil. So that played a whole thing together. It was the whole part. And that was it. Again, once more, just very, very fortunate that the website took off. And here we are 8 years later already. Wow, 8 years after the World Cup. And so that's how Mundo Albiceleste took off.
Well, if Argentina couldn't get past Germany in that final, at least, the upshot was kind of putting the website into the limelight a bit, giving you a bit more of a platform. And obviously the success has come since a bit. We'll talk about the Copa America recently and look forward, as I was referencing earlier as well, to the upcoming World Cup. But obviously, Roy, you've built up a bit of a network of Argentina fans around the world with the Mundo Albiceleste website and all of the social media platforms. But on a micro level, when it comes to your life in the moment as a supporter, as someone who doesn't live in Argentina, you're living in Canada, do you have friends who are also fans? You mentioned your brother. Are there people you can watch these games with? Is there a local Argentina bar in Montreal with hardcore fans who meet up to watch? Or is this kind of in the moment, a pretty solitary and personal experience and journey for you sometimes?
More of a solitary. My interactions, yes, I have some Argentina fans here, some friends rather, some friends here. We talk whenever there's a match and everything, but a lot of it is just, like you said, it's kind of the network or the community that I'm a part of just worldwide. You'd be surprised. I think there are more Argentina fans in India and in Bangladesh than there are people in Argentina. And I'm being very, very honest about that. It's not a matter of there's 1 million Argentine supporters in India or Bangladesh. There are millions, absolutely incredible. So my thing is always, whenever I want to talk about Argentina, I take to Twitter or go to the website and kind of, interact with others. In terms of Montreal, where I'm in right now, there is a South American community, but it's really a South American community, not necessarily just Argentinian, but you have Argentinian, you have Brazilian, you have Peruvian, you have Colombian. So it's a bit of everything. And, whenever there are national team matches, it's that friendly banter, so to speak. Personally speaking, I cannot watch Argentina matches in public. It's too, I don't talk, I get very tense, and the slightest thing will annoy me. So I'm one of those people where if an Argentina match is happening, I'm watching it either with my brother or alone. And I have no problems with that. No problems whatsoever, just because I can't take the banter, I can't take the teasing, so to speak. So I watch it alone. If we win, like we have been doing lately, knock on wood, great. I'll tease people on Twitter. Otherwise, keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear anything about it. But yeah, no, it's mostly just interactions on Twitter and WhatsApp groups and stuff like that.
No, that makes sense. And yeah, I think we can all sympathize with watching games and sometimes needing a bit of time to ourselves, especially the Arsenal and Tottenham fans, as Keitel and I respectively are. But we've actually we've got a game now, Roy, and it's a game that we often play on this podcast. It's called Who Are Ya? If you've listened before, you might have remembered it. But for Roy's benefit, we'll let you know how it goes. So basically, you're basically going to have to guess a mystery player, you and Keitel together, and I'll give you one clue to start off with. Might be very vague, it might not be, we'll see. And then you're just going to have to go question by question until you can try and reveal this mystery player. The common theme through these players is they'll all be related to Argentinian football one way or another. We'll see how it goes. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But it's always worth trying. Okay, so the first clue for the first player is that he is Argentinian, but it's that at one point in his career, he was Syria's Young Player of the Year. So we'll start with that. No, not him. Although I think he was the Defender of the Year. Yeah. But yeah, no, not him. But I do love him. But yeah.
Okay. Well, just because I have another player in mind, I'll go for a guess rather than a question. But could it have been Eric Lamela when he was playing for AS Roma?
You know what, Kai? It could have been, because I know he had a good season there, but that's not the guy I was thinking of. I'm not going to say it wasn't him, but yeah.
Okay.
But
are we talking in the past decade?
Yeah, we're talking rough, without giving it away too much, roughly like 10 years ago kind of time.
Okay. Is he a midfielder?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like attacking mid is what I'd say.
Okay.
See, now I'm worried because I want to say, and then I know some people strongly disagree and say, no, he was not, he's not a midfielder. He's not attacking midfielders in that bit of a hybrid. Dybala?
No, not him. A player I'd love to see play for Spurs, but no, not him. This is a guy. He's not playing in Serie A currently, but he is still playing professional football. So there we go.
Young player in Serie A.
Was he at one of the Champions League clubs in Italy?
When he won this award, he was actually at a relatively small club, but then he would move in a fairly high profile transfer to a big club in another league after that.
See, part of me wants to, because you just picked the league with the most Argentines in it.
I know. Well,
I think I know who it is. I
have a guess, but go ahead.
I think it's Pastore.
You're right, Kai.
Yeah,
Pastore.
And of course, we've been playing for Palermo.
Yeah, he was. He was playing for Palermo at the time. He obviously went to PSG, then came back to Serie A with Roma. And apparently, I didn't realize this is actually at Elche.
He's at Elche, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Sorry, not to cut you off, Joe, but fun fact. Well, maybe not so fun. A big reason why Pastore actually made the 2010 World Cup team for Argentina was actually because of his agent.
Really? Oh God.
Yeah, there's some rumors and some unofficial reports that the reason why Pastore actually made the team in 2010 was his agent wanted to try and get him a higher, get him to a higher club, so to speak, and it would help his profile if he was a World Cup squad player.
God, the power of agents is unbelievable in modern day football. But thanks for that, Roy. But yeah, that's our first guy. You got it. Well done. Now we move on to my second player, and this guy is an Argentinian footballer. He still plays to this day, but he was actually part of the squad that won a gold medal for Argentina at the 2004 Olympics back in Athens. So there you go. That's my sort of clue or collection of clues, however you want to go with it.
He's still playing part of 2004 Olympic squad?
He was in the 2004 Olympic squad, and he's still playing to this day.
Let's see.
I'm pretty sure Martin Palermo has retired at this point, right?
I think he must have done.
Yeah, Palermo. Palermo's actually coaching. Let's see. 2004, you had Mascherano, you had Coloccini, both of which retired. You had Tevez. Tevez is mildly active. I don't know if he's the one you're talking about, but Tevez is mildly active.
He's not what I'll say. Just say he's well known, but he's not like a. I wouldn't call him an
Andres D'Alessandro.
That, you know what, that is technically right, because he was in that squad and he is still playing. And there'll be more D'Alessandro talk later, actually. But okay. it's not. It is him, but it's not him. It's not the guy I'm thinking of.
Is it Rodrigo Palacio?
It is not.
I got it.
No.
Willy Caballero.
Yes, it is.
I knew it.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Yeah, I was. I obviously know that he's quite old now, Caballero. I didn't realize back then he was. I don't think he was just in the squad, but obviously, yeah, he's at Southampton still. Sort of played the odd game recently when they had some injury problems. But obviously, yeah, been a bit of a feature in the Premier League in recent years. But yeah, that was great, Roy. Yeah, Willy Caballero.
Yeah, he was part of if I'm not mistaken, he was the starting goalkeeper for Argentina at the 2001 under-20 squad when they won it.
Oh, really? Okay. So he's got some silverware in the early noughties for Argentinian teams. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, well I've got one more player for you. This is an interesting one, actually. It'll be interesting. It's either one where maybe you'll just get it immediately, or it might be quite tricky. But this is a player who, in the 21st century, he's Argentinian born and he's won the World Cup, but not for Argentina.
Trezeguet.
That is
Cameronese.
Oh, you got it. That's amazing. Yeah. I didn't. That was something I didn't realize, actually. Kai, did you know that Mario Camoranesi is Argentinian?
I think that one I'd heard, but are you also saying, Roy, that Trezeguet was born there?
His parents certainly were. He grew up
Trezeguet's parents. He's eligible. He was eligible.
Yeah, because he played. I think Trezeguet. He started his career in Argentina, and then he certainly played for River Plate at some point, maybe towards the end.
I think did Camoranesi finish his career in Argentina as well?
No, I don't believe he did.
Okay.
He's I think weirdly, Camoranesi started his career in Mexico, but then he might be managing in Argentina now. But yeah, that was something I learned today that was new. But Royce just got in there and absolutely destroyed that question, which was
very one or the other.
I just Googled Camoranesi went after Juventus, apparently played for Stuttgart, but then he did go to Lanús and he finished at Racing Club. So I think in the back of my mind somewhere, I think I was aware of the Camoranesi thing. But Roy, at the end of the day, you got two of these and I got one of them. So congrats.
It's a team effort. It's a team effort.
Fantastic.
You're very diplomatic, Roy. I appreciate that.
Well, no, that was, we're impressed. Definitely impressed. But now we're gonna move on to actually talking a bit about Argentinian domestic football, the Primera Division. So obviously, I guess from a European perspective anyway, I think everybody knows about Boca Juniors and River Plate, the rivalries, undoubtedly on the most famous in the world. But I guess what would be really interesting, Roy, is what is the current state of the Argentinian domestic league? And aside from those two teams, who are the other teams that people should be watching out for in the Primera Division?
I mean, well, historically speaking, it's the top 4, top 5. So you have Boca, you have River. Some call Estudiantes as another one, number 5, and it's Independiente and Racing Club. Those are like the top 4/top 5. Unfortunately, right now, the state of Argentine football is, let's say it has seen better years. Financially speaking, a lot of the players, I mean, Julián Álvarez being the perfect example, but a lot of the players tend to go to Europe very early on in their career, or these days, a lot of them go to the MLS in North America, the United States. So you had someone like Ezequiel Barco, who went to Atlanta United in the United States, MLS, got his money, so to speak, came back, and he's present with River Plate. Christian Pavón, another one who was part of the 2018 World Cup squad, went to the LA Galaxy and everything. So the state right now, it's all a matter of money, and financially speaking, Argentina cannot compete anywhere near with anybody from Europe, and to a certain degree can compete maybe even less with Brazilian clubs. And for whatever reason, right or wrong, Brazilian players, and I'm not saying this really just like in terms of I'm biased, but Brazilian players tend to go at a higher price, at a higher premium than Argentinian players, no matter what. And maybe it's agents, maybe it's historically speaking, whatever the case may be. But even at that, what happens is a lot of the Argentinian players, they'll score a couple of goals, or they have an agent, or they're owned by, let's say, a third party. and then they end up going, let's say, to the MLS or somewhere in Europe. Someone like, I don't know if you guys heard of him, but Adolfo Gaich. Adolfo Gaich played for, if I'm not mistaken, San Lorenzo, and he was part of the Argentina under-20 team and the Olympic team, and a big striker, your typical old school number 9. And his, he had one good season with San Lorenzo, and after that he went to CSKA Moscow, and not a good fit at all. And he was on loan in Italy, didn't go too well, and now his career is kind of, all over the place. And unfortunately, that's the reality, let's say, of Argentine football. Not to say that there aren't any good players or are not any good teams, but historically speaking, when you compare them to the early 2000s or the 90s, it's not the same. It's not the case at all. The big gem being Julián Álvarez, who's going to join or who has joined Manchester City in the summer. So he's the big star right now in Argentina, or coming out of Argentina.
Well, that's interesting, actually. Obviously, you said Julián Álvarez is on his way to City, and obviously you've also said that it's not the best time for Argentinian domestic football. But I guess it would be great to just hear a bit of, given that he's on his way to the Premier League. Can you tell us a bit about Julián Álvarez, just how good a player a Man City buy?
I'll say this, he's a great player, a tremendous player, in my opinion, along with Paulo Dybala, probably Argentina's best export since Sergio Aguero. And that's a big saying in terms of attacking talent. I'm not talking anything else, but in terms of attacking talent, the raw talent is there. The potential is there. He knows how to link up play, knows how to hold the ball up well. Deceptively quick. He's pretty quick and a very intelligent player. My only thing is, and we saw this for Argentina, he had around 15-20 minutes in a World Cup qualifier recently for Argentina versus Uruguay, where he was substituted in, and you could tell the level where he was up against, the European-based players from Uruguay. When he was up against them, you could tell a little bit he was missing a step, which is normal. But that's the difference in quality, the difference between the European players that have been there for a while in comparison to the ones domestically in South America. Now, that's not a knock on Alvarez. He's still very young, and he was up against Uruguay, which is a very, very strong team as well. For him, Manchester City are getting a great player, definitely one for the future, a very versatile player, can pretty much play almost anywhere up front, on the wing, up front, or supportive striker, secondary striker. My only thing is, physically, it might take him a bit of time, might take him half a season or a season to adjust to the Premier League, which I think is normal, especially for a young kid coming over from Argentina or South America. I mean, if you look at Gabriel Jesus, nothing against him, but he didn't exactly set the Premier League, on fire when he made the switch, which is normal. So I think City are getting one for the future. If they want one to make an immediate impact, he certainly could, and I truly hope he does. But I think it might take him a year or two just to fully adjust to City and the Premier League. But he's definitely an incredible talent.
Sounds like, whilst he might not yet quite be the finished article, he's definitely a player that City fans should be getting excited about, and that he probably has one foot already maybe on the plane to Qatar at the end of this year. Speaking of, what are Argentina's national side's prospects, do you think, going into this tournament? You'd assume it's Messi's last international tournament period. It's the one trophy he hasn't won in his career, basically, now that he can, check the Copa America off of his list. That team that won the Copa America with the likes of Christian Romero, I think Montiel at right back as well. It was kind of like another one sort of who's shown that Argentina and their defense, at the very least at this point, are a pretty strong unit. What do you make of the squad as the likes of Messi, perhaps Di Maria, are on their way out, Alvarez is on his way in, and then there's these guys like Romero, like Montiel, who might be sort of mainstays in the team for the next few years?
Yeah, it's definitely optimistic, definitely optimism, surrounding the team, especially when you compare them to 2018. You mentioned Messi. This is in all likelihood his last tournament for Argentina. There was an interview up, actually I translated it a couple of days ago, I can't remember the player. I think it was Emiliano Martinez, the Aston Villa goalkeeper, where he said something along the lines of, at the Copa America, Messi told the team, this is my last Copa, like this is it. So I think, he knows it's his last tournament. There's that experience of Messi, of Di Maria, and of Otamendi. And then you have the younger players that you mentioned, like Romero and Montiel, and maybe the not so younger players like Emiliano Martinez. But the fact that this team was able to do something that in the past 28 years, no other Argentina team was able to do, and that was win something. And not only did they win the Copa America, but they won it against Brazil and in Brazil. And look, I don't care what anybody says, is, this tournament should have been held a year prior, this or that, doesn't matter. This team was able to get that monkey off their back, and they were able to get the win. And that in and of itself takes a lot of pressure off them. They're 27, or I believe now 28 matches unbeaten, undefeated, which is, it's a great record. It's absolutely a great record. But at the end of the day, if they don't win the World Cup, it's going to be a great experience and a great memory, but that's the main goal. I think the team has enough experience, has enough talent, enough youth to make a deep run. Previous years, I would have said, yeah, this is a quarterfinal team perhaps, but the fact that they were able to win the tournament, win the Copa America, I'd say, this team could make the semifinals, and in the semifinals, you never know what can happen, right? I mean, look at England. You guys made the Euro 2020 final, so there you go. That's that. So who knows what could happen at at a tournament, and especially in the semifinal.
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly looks like Argentina have a really strong chance, and obviously, if they did go on to win it, what a story that would be, with it likely being Messi's final ever tournament. But on the topic of Messi, I mean, we can't not discuss him when we're having a podcast about Argentinian football. But it's obviously been a weird season for him, hasn't he? He signed for PSG, he left Barcelona, and then obviously it hasn't gone to plan for PSG. They've been knocked out of the Champions League, which obviously was not the plan. And then to make matters worse, just yesterday, and as we were recording, Messi, and then Neymar as well, to be fair, but Messi was booed by his own fans, if you could believe such a thing. So Roy, clearly this move hasn't really worked out for Messi. It's not necessarily his fault, but my question for you is, next season, where do you think Lionel Messi will be playing, or where would you like to see him play? I guess that, especially with this World Cup coming up, I imagine Argentina fans want Messi to be in a good place. So yeah, what do you think's next for him?
I think he stays in Paris, at least until the next year. I think contractually speaking, there's no way PSG is going to let him leave. Nothing against PSG, and at the end of the day, unfortunately, sports is business, and Messi brings them a lot of money. Whether he gets booed or not, tourists are going to go watch him, and fans are going to go watch him. So that's going to bring in the money for them. I think he stays in Paris. He stays with PSG. Personally speaking, where would I like? I've been watching Barcelona since about 2002. As a supporter, actual supporter since 2002, because of Riquelme. So as a Barcelona supporter, I would very much love to see Messi back in the Blaugrana, but that's not going to happen, at least not next year. So I think he remains in Paris. His season has been a bit of a roller coaster. Everyone knows, I don't think it's any surprise, if I say Messi never wanted to go to PSG. I don't think that's much of a surprise. I think he was kind of forced out of Barcelona, obviously. The only team that could get him, that could afford him at the time, was PSG, so he went there. And he never had a preseason. Start of the season, he got injured while with Argentina against Venezuela. He got a kick, a stomp. So that kept him out for a while. He played injured. New team, new league, especially at his age. I know we're talking about Messi, but at his age, it's still something. And then COVID. And I'm saying this as an Argentina fan, but Pochettino's not the right guy for PSG either. So it's a mixture of a lot of stuff. And look, could he do a bit more on the pitch? Perhaps. Who knows? You don't know the mental aspect of it all. It's fun, and it's easy to go on Twitter and criticize this player or that player. I've done it. I'm sure pretty much everybody, everyone's done it. But it's not easy, I would imagine. And I'm sure he probably would prefer to be at Barcelona right now. But at the end of the day, he's there. And personally speaking, for me, at this point in his career, and I say this with all due respect, my focus for Messi right now is Argentina. So if he can get to the World Cup in great shape, I don't care if he scores 0 goals with PSG. If he reaches Qatar in good shape, by all means, I have no problems with that.
I'm surprised that you didn't want to see him lining up for your local Montreal Impact. Very realistic transfer, I'm sure that could have happened now. I'm just kidding, of course. But yeah, well, too cold probably for a bunch of the South Americans, you'd think. But speaking of Canadian football,
Yeah.
It's a pretty exciting time with the likes of, in particular, Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies playing in Europe, and two really, really exciting young players. The Canada team are doing quite well. I think recently beat the US, who are always kind of like a main rival and historically speaking kind of have been the superior North American footballing nation kind of in recent times. But that's looking like it's actually quite a close fight at the minute. What is sort of the perspective on football in Canada these days? Has there been a big upsurge in the attention that people are paying to the sport? And with obviously looking ahead even further than the 2022 World Cup to the following one, when it's going to be split between Canada, the States, and Mexico, what might that look like for Canada?
Yeah, unfortunately for Canada, or fortunately, the team's making it to the World Cup. And fun fact, the last time Canada qualified for a World Cup was 1986. I'll let you figure out who won that tournament. But no, as for Canada, unfortunately, the media coverage here has been nothing. It's really been zero. The matches are not shown on television, barely any highlights. Unfortunately speaking, if you want to watch the Canadian national team play, more often than not, you have to pay. Obviously, it's a paid subscription. You have to find it online. You pay and you watch. There's very little coverage of it on television or even in the media, unfortunately speaking, and which is sad because the team pretty much made it to the World Cup. They've qualified, or they're on the verge of qualifying. And the team, there's no talk, there's no support. I've lived in Canada for years now, and the ice hockey here is the main thing, and the youth ice hockey, the Olympic teams and everything, and it's massive. It's absolutely massive, and rightfully so. I get it. But when your national team makes it to a tournament as big as the World Cup, you would like to see some sort of coverage or some sort of support, which is not the case. But credit to the team. They've been able to manage. They've got some good players, and moving forward to 2026, this is a big stepping stone for them. I mean, qualifying for Qatar is huge, massive. And who knows? Who knows? You got a lot of kids, and there's a lot of immigrants in the country. Canada's mostly immigrants, so a lot of them are Latinos or Africans or Asians or whatever it is, and they play football, or as they call it here, they play soccer. So it's the cheapest sport, right? To play. You don't need too much equipment, as opposed to something like hockey, which costs a fortune every single season. So a lot of kids end up playing that, and now if you watch the Canadian men's team in football, you say, wow, okay, I want to be like this person, I want to be like that person. And ironically enough, the Canadian women's team has been great for as long as I can remember. They won gold recently in last year, actually at the Olympics. They won gold. They've always had a strong team, but even at that, the Canadian women's team doesn't get much coverage. It's mostly hockey here, and American football, and even some basketball, some NBA. Very little coverage of Canadian football or soccer.
Seems like the talent as far as soccer or football in Canada is on the up, and as you mentioned, it just seems like the media attention needs to kind of catch up with the men's game over there, realistically, and the women's game too. If anything, the women's team have actually been pretty good for a while now, actually. So Canada, start watching more football. Time for a final quick game, and whilst Argentina has produced goats like Maradona and Messi, there have also been some less spectacular footballers to come from the very same proud footballing nation. And so, as Joe and I are lifelong fans of the Premier League, we've seen a few of these players kind of grace the top flight of English football. And so, Roy, what we would like you to help us do is to pick an Argentina English Premier League collab banter five-a-side team. There are some decent names on the list, don't get us wrong, but these are players who were probably criticized more than they were praised during their time in England. So you'll pick a keeper, a defender, two midfielders, and a striker. Joe and I have the names for you to choose from. If we missed anything, feel free to throw it in. But I'll start with the goalies. So from these four names, Roy, who's going to be the keeper in this kind of Argentina Premier League banter five-a-side team? And it's the likes of Willy Caballero, Paolo Gazzaniga, Julian Speroni, and Sergio Romero that you'll be picking from.
I mean, Romero's solid. Romero's probably the best number two any goalkeeper or any team could have had. Speroni was at Crystal Palace forever, it appeared like. Gazaniga, he's with Fulham now, right? I think second division. Or
Sub goalie at Fulham, yeah.
Yeah. And Caballero. Poof. If I actually want to win the match, I would go with Romero. I actually want to win.
Well, we'll stick with Romero, I guess, in that case, and maybe we'll find some more humorous names elsewhere in the squad. Go for it, Joe.
Okay, we'll move on to defenders now. We've got a few names for you, but we can only go for one, as this is a five-a-side team. There might be a few players in there. We might have been harsh putting them in, but banter, it doesn't have to be bad. They can be good banter as well. But here we go. We've got Marcos Angeleri, played for Sunderland for a bit. We've got Lionel Scaloni, who's of course the head coach at the moment. We've got my personal favourite on this list, ex-Tottenham left-back Maurizio Taricco. We've got a bit of a legend in the northeast of England for Sunderland and Middlesbrough, Julio Arca. We've got another Sunderland defender in Santiago Vergini. And then we've got a player that had a good career, even in England, he wasn't so bad, Martin Di Michaelis. We've got a guy who's had a good career, but he was not good for Tottenham in his one season there, Federico Fazio. We have a guy who was at Everton at a similar time, Ramiro Funes Mori. And then finally, actually, this guy's a bit of a legend, but he's pretty bantery, if not just for his amazing hair, in Fabrizio Colaccini. So that was quite a few names there, Roy, but was there any name that sprung to mind that you'd like to stick in our five-a-side banter team?
Oh my God. There was a lot. There's a lot.
I know we can. If you need a quick refresher, we can do that. Just.
Oh God. Oh boy. Marcos Angeleri was, with all due respect, that was a failure. That was a failure from the very beginning. I'm surprised you guys didn't pick the red card. I love him, by the way. The red card merchant, Marcos Rojo. That's another one.
Oh yeah.
Colaccini, I think, wasn't too bad. Arsenal, didn't you guys have Nelson Vivas at one point?
Yeah. That was a little bit probably slightly before my time, but
he was actually good though, so he doesn't really necessarily belong on this list. I would say Michel, Martin de Michelis. I think for me is probably the better one, but you know what? Aesthetically pleasing. He had long hair, if you're into that. But then again, so did Marcos Angeleri as well. I think he had some long hair. Vergini was no way. That's not happening. That's not happening. What are some of the other names?
We had Federico Fazio, Ramiro Funes Mori, Lionel Scaloni, Maurizio Taricco. Did he even play for Argentina? Did he play for the national team?
I don't believe he did. No,
yeah, I don't think he was. He was barely good enough for Tottenham, so Argentina probably not. And then Julio Arca, who actually was good. He was good at that.
He was good. He played for the under-20 team. He was pretty good.
Yeah, he scored some. He had a great left foot on him, which as a left-footed player I can appreciate. But yeah, Kai, how about we move on to the midfielders?
Let's do it. You know what? I'll go with, just because I like him and maybe lesser known to some people. I'll go with Julio Arca.
Lovely.
He's my guy. I want someone. I actually want to win this match, so we'll see. But I feel like midfielder wise, I think I know who's coming. Unfortunately.
Well, let me roll out the blue and white striped carpet, I guess, of midfield names for you. This first guy had a brief spell with West Brom. He's actually playing in the MLS these days. Sebastian Blanco is the name.
Yep.
We've got Mauro Zarate, who I remember, I think it would have been Birmingham maybe where he first popped up and actually was quite exciting. And I think since might have then played for the likes of Watford and West Ham with a bit less successfully. We've got Angel Di Maria, who, Manchester United aside, has had a fantastic career, but that didn't really work out. And he doesn't look back particularly fondly on his time at Old Trafford either. A name that makes me smile because it almost feels like it was part of a time in the Premier League that didn't really happen. The whole Blackburn-Venky's situation. Mauro Formica makes the list.
I saw him score.
Yeah, Joe's seen him score, so he is real. It wasn't just a figment of my imagination. Bruno Zuccolini makes the list. Not sure he actually ever lined up for Man City in any competitive Premier League games, but was technically contracted to the club for a while. And his brother Franco, I remember I signed him on Football Manager ages ago and actually became randomly one of the best players in the game, which I don't think has actually happened in real life for him, unfortunately. Speaking of things not maybe panning out the way you might have expected, Ricky Alvarez is another name. In fact, I think that turned into a legal battle with Sunderland, given his injury situation. A name that actually, Roy, I think you were the first one to mention on this podcast so far, is Andres D'Alessandro, who showed up at Portsmouth to keep them up. Again, did a really good job, but just personality-wise and whatnot, maybe might be fitting for a banter 11 or banter 5-a-side team, I should say. Giovanni Lo Celso, who kind of underwhelmed at Tottenham. Likewise, Eric Lamela, who did the same. You get to pick two of these names, and if there's another name I haven't mentioned, you can throw that into.
I know there was Claudio Jacob. He played for
West Brom. Yeah,
West Brom. That's it. But no, out of those, I mean, D'Alessandro was talented and he knew how to fight. Mauro Zarate had some problems with a lot of players, specifically, I mean, at the Under-20 World Cup with Argentina, he had some problems. Those two, although Zarate is more maybe attacking midfielder / striker, but we could put him in there. Shoot. What are some of the earlier names you mentioned?
Sebastian Blanco, Angel Di Maria, Mauro Formica, Bruno Zuccolini, Ricky Alvarez, Andres D'Alessandro, Giovanni Lo Celso, Eric Lamela.
Okay, let's go with, you said you signed Franco Zuccolini, right? Football Manager?
Franco I signed, yeah.
Yeah, let's go with his brother Bruno. Let's give him that Manchester City
Let's do it.
Let's go with that.
And then a partner for Bruno in the midfield.
Oh my God. Yeah, I want someone. I'd love to see a 39 or 40-year-old Andres D'Alessandro picking
I
up
think so.
with someone. Let's go with D'Alessandro. We got to go with him.
Let's do it. I like the balance there. Joe?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm happy D'Alessandro's made it in. That's good. Okay, so we've got one position left in the team, and it's a striker. We've got an interesting list of names there, which will be quite fun to read out, to be honest. We've got Emmanuel Villa, who was part of the worst Premier League team of all time in Derby County. We've got Mauro Baselli, played for Wigan for a bit, and again, didn't have the best time over in England. We've then got a sort of big transfer flop in Guido Carrillo. Southampton spent a lot of money on him. It didn't work out. We've got Gonzalo Higuain on there as well. Obviously a fantastic footballer, but by the time he got to Chelsea, I'm not so sure. We've got Luciano Vietto, who was at Fulham fairly recently. We've got a bit of a legend on here, the former Everton striker, Dennis Stracqualasi. He was a bit of a unit, if I remember correctly. We've then got Franco Di Santo, played for a few teams in England, still plays in Turkey, I think, now, potentially. We've then got a bit of a lower league legend who eventually played in the Premier League in Luciano Becchio, played for Leeds and Norwich. And then finally, we've got a guy from the early noughties. I think he was famous for scoring a few goals with a mask on, and that was Facundo Sava. So you've got, we can read them out again if you need to hear them again, Roy, but anyone screaming out to you from that list?
Well, I'll say this: if my team has a one-on-one with the goalkeeper and I don't want to score, I'd go with Gonzalo Higuain. Let's put it that way.
Very true.
To be fair to a couple of them, I mean, like Mauro Baselli, he's done pretty well in Argentina career-wise. Just in England, it hasn't worked out. I'll tell you an interesting story about Franco Zuccolini. I mean, about Franco Di Santo, which was funny enough. In 2012, 2013, on the FIFA games, I would play them. I'd do career mode, and I'd try and build just an Argentina team in career. And I actually signed Franco Di Santo. I remember it was with Valencia. And I was just scoring. And every time I would play FIFA and he would just score and score. And I'm very happy. And then that entire season, he actually started getting called up to the Argentina national team. So I'm a fairly stupid, superstitious kid myself. So I said, you know what? Every time Argentina's playing and Franco's on the squad, I'm going to play some FIFA and get him to score. So, he'll play some matches and ultimately never, he didn't make the World Cup squad, but he played a couple of World Cup qualifiers for Argentina in the friendly, I believe. So, I like Franco Di Santo. He's a good kid, played in Germany a little bit. Chelsea, played for Chelsea and I think Blackburn. Was it Blackburn? I can't remember.
Yeah, Blackburn and Wigan as well.
Wigan, sorry. I'm going to go with Franco Di Santo just because he reminds me a little bit about myself. Tall, skinny, kind of lanky, not particularly too good. Sorry, Franco, if you're listening to this. So I'm going to have to go with Franco Di Santo just because I trust him over any of the other strikers you mentioned, including Gonzalo Higuain, who played in that 2014 final, which took an insane amount of alcohol consumed in me just to forget that final. So we're going to go with Franco Di Santo on that. The ultimate GOAT, ultimate Premier League striker, no matter what anybody says. Harry Kane was the next Franco Di Santo, put it that way.
Ironically, at one point they were probably seen in a similar light. Sort of, you go back 10 years ago when they were both young up and coming strikers. But yeah, Kai, do you want to just read out that banter five-a-side team for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So in goal, we've got Sergio Romero. One defender is Julio Arca, good for the set pieces. We've got Bruno Zuccolini, and another one who'll be staking a claim on those free kicks and corners, Andres D'Alessandro in midfield, and then Franco Di Santo, who sounds like is kind of Roy's footballing doppelganger in another life. So pretty decent team. Joe, how confident would you feel lining up against these guys at Power League on a wet night?
I'd be a bit scared. Like you said, D'Alessandro seems like the sort of guy that could square up to you if you like by accident like fouled him or something. I mean, the hardest part is probably going to be getting a goal past Sergio Romero, but maybe you'd have a chance. Maybe you would. But happy with the team we've put together there. Sadly, though, that is all we have time for today. So as always, big thank you to my co-host Keitel, and then an even bigger thank you from the both of us to Roy for joining us. And we've honestly had a great time chatting with you, Roy, about Argentinian football and all the rest of it. But we hope you've had a good time. And also, before we end, how can our listeners best follow you and everything that you're up to at the moment?
Yes, on Twitter at Roy Nemer, Roy Nemer, and then Mundo Albiceleste.com. If you're not sure how to spell it, because I know it's in Spanish, check it up. It's on my Twitter. It actually means, well, Albiceleste is the nickname for Argentina, the sky blue and white. At Twitter at Roy Nemer or MundoAlbiceleste.com to get your everything related to Argentina, everything from the players to the goals to the assists to the transfers to the injuries to December 2022 when they win the World Cup. Make sure it's going to be a big celebration on there when they defeat England in the final. It's going to be massive. I'm joking. Like, England's going to make the final. All kidding aside. It's going to be on there. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Roy. Best of luck with everything that you're up to, and good luck, as you've already, I guess, predicted Argentina's success at the end of this year. They might not need the luck. As far as our listeners, if you enjoyed this, please do follow us wherever you like to stream your podcasts. Just look for United Mates Football Podcast. You can find us the same way on YouTube if you feel like putting some faces to these voices. Don't forget to click that subscribe button while you're at it. On Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, we are at United Mates FP. So give us a follow there. And then for all of that content and more in one place, visit the website. That's unitedmatesfp.com. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.